This is Fresh Air. Faith Ringgold's work may be hard to describe, but it's glorious to look at. She makes quilts that are also paintings. Her quilts stitch together fabrics of bold patterns and vibrant colors, but one of the fabrics she uses is canvas, which she paints and writes stories on. Her quilt, Tar Beach, has a border of clashing and floral patterns. In the center is a painting of a family picnicking on the roof of a Harlem building. This is an autobiographical image. Summer nights after sundown, her family used to gather on the tar-covered roof of her apartment building, which they called Tar Beach. Tar Beach is also the title of her new children's storybook, which is illustrated by her quilt paintings. Ringgold's work is represented in the permanent collections of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Museum of Modern Art, and the Studio Museum of Harlem. Ringgold loves fabric, and she was surrounded by it when she was young. Her mother was a dressmaker.
I was brought up with little pieces of fabric, and I was always sewing and making things, but then I would discard them because they didn't look, we're trained to feel that everything's supposed to look like it's commercially produced. And so I didn't really like my little fabric pieces. I wish I had some of them now. And but it wasn't until the 70s when we women artists were trying to find out what women's art was, trying to identify who we were as women and what is our culture. I'd already been through the 60s where I had done that as a black person, going back to my African roots, using African art as my cultural stimulation, as my root to define myself as a black person in art. And now I was doing it again as a woman. And those two experiences totally shaped my art.
Did you know other black artists or other women artists when you were getting started?
As a young student, no. I did not. I had to find these things for myself. I wasn't taught about any black artists when I was in school. I never had a black teacher in my life. I went to school in New York City. The school system has always been very segregated. Now it's all people of color. When I was there, it was all white, just about, with some black schools here and there. But no, I didn't learn any of that in college. I had a problem trying to paint people with brown skin like mine, and I used to make them purple and orange.
Is it hard to find the
green.
right colors for the skin tone?
Yeah, especially when you're not being taught, And my professors, they thought I was being exotic. They said to me, "What are you trying to do? Why don't you just go ahead and paint people?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean, which people? What are you talking about?" So to them, there was only one kind of people, white people. What are you trying to make up something new here? And I had to find out for myself. And in the process, in trying to mix colors to represent the browns that I was interested in making, I came up with orange and green and purple and all kinds of things before I finally was able to teach myself how to create the hues of black people.
I want to ask you about one of your earlier quilts. This one is called Who's Afraid of Aunt Jemima? What was the significance of the Aunt Jemima image for you that led you to want to do a quilt on it?
Well, I was always quite turned off by people's hatred of Aunt Jemima because of her size and her color and the way they used to change her on the boxes, the Aunt Jemima pancake box. If you look at the early ones when I was a kid, she was much darker. She had that cloth was tied in another way, and her nose was wider, her lips were fuller, and she was fatter. Now she's thinner, she's lighter, the nose is thinner. What is all of this? And so I wanted to pay tribute to all of these Aunt Jemimas that we have in all of our families, these strong and very powerful women who sometimes don't pay attention to their weight because they're so busy nurturing and feeding the whole family, And it seems to be a kind of enigma among people that there is often this auntie or this sister in the family who negates her own life and existence to take care of and provide for other people. And that's what I associate with Aunt Jemima, a woman who cared and took care of people. I just couldn't understand why people would want to hate her.
You did a story quilt about your own weight loss.
Yes, I did.
You want to describe that quilt?
And I guess also I associated myself very strongly with Aunt Jemima because, I was fat too, and you get a lot of flack from people when you are. They kind of care about you less. They feel like you're big, so you can take it, and they lean on you heavily. That quilt that I did about weight loss was a public commitment to lose the weight. And a performance also, which documents the performance, and the quilt documented all the decades of my life. I was born in 1930, so I did a whole collage of photographs of me in the 1930s, and the 40s, and the 50s, and the 60s to see when it was I gained the weight. In the 30s, I wasn't fat. In the 40s, I wasn't. In the 50s, I used to model for my mother. I was very slim. In the 60s, I got married the second time, and I began getting fat. The 70s, I gained even more weight, and the pictures show that. And in the 80s, I began even more. And by 86, I had reached enormous proportions and really decided to lose it. And so I went on a liquid diet. And then I left that and went to Weight Watchers and lost the weight and changed my whole way of eating. Stopped eating meat and dairy, and it's a constant struggle, but I keep it public because that way it's not just between me and the food.
You grew up in Harlem, and you still have a studio there. Mm-hmm. How has Harlem changed over the years?
Well, we don't have police protection. That's one thing. And when you don't have police protection, that means that crime sometimes runs rampant in the street. We don't have, we're not overcrowded. That's good. We don't have to worry about the crowds of people and all the smog from the businesses. It's actually quite a lovely place to live. It's close to everywhere, the transportation is great. The people are friendly. I feel at home. I'm not a minority there. I've lived there all my life. I live in a beautiful building. Everybody says hi to me coming in and going out. When I go away, they miss me. When I come back, they're glad to see me. It's wonderful living in Harlem. Of course, you don't roam around late at night by yourself, but then you don't do that anywhere in New York.
That's right.
I find I have never had any kind of criminal problems in Harlem. Nobody's ever attacked me, or I've never been robbed, either in my house or on my person. I never had any problems living in Harlem at all. It's just been wonderful for me.
So what keeps you in Harlem, that sense of community?
Yeah, I like not being a minority. I like the idea that when I look around, I see a whole lot of people like me. I go in a store, nobody follows me around thinking I'm trying to steal something, and that happens a lot, It doesn't make any difference how you're dressed or who you are. There is this stereotype that, if it's black, it must be doing something wrong. So I like that. At home, at least, I can relax and just be me.
Well, Faith Ringgold, I thank you very much for talking with us.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's been real fun.
Artist Faith Ringgold, this is Fresh Air.